Any ideas?
Well, that could be a problem, but if you're actually that poor, then what you've got is emergency assistance. And by emergency assistance, this is already part of the plan in terms of making sure people have food to eat and things of that nature. I would suggest the 2-week period, it doesn't matter where it falls, within that 2-week period, you're not going to have your utilities turned off, so you don't got to worry about the lights and the phone and the toilet flushing and that sort of thing. So the only thing you'd be looking at in terms of an expense would be fuel if you have to go somewhere, and food. If someone is willing to help you out with the food, and this could be a neighbor. It doesn't necessarily have to be an emergency entity of some sort. Then you're in really great shape if you can do it with a neighbor. They might have enough gas to be able to, take you someplace that you need to go, whatever that may be. So that's basically what I would suggest is the reason for community. It's a really solid reason. Somebody might need to go get meds or see the doctor or whatever. Next question.
Okay, the next question comes from the chat. Drake, if they're going to nickel and dime us with toll roads, will the price of gas come down to where we can afford it?
Well, you remember I said something about $21 a month on your phone bill? The same sort of thing applies to gasoline. There are a whole load of federal, and I mean federal, strictly federal taxes in your gas. It's quite a bit. It varies according to where your location is in terms of the amount of the tax. Now, it shouldn't vary, but it does. I've decided to do a little checking once and found that out. So, if you take the idea of not having a federal government out of the picture any more than you absolutely have to have, there will be a little bit of it, but not much. You're looking at an extraordinary decrease in the price of a whole bunch of things. You're talking about your paycheck being quite a bit fatter if the federal government gets their skinners out of there. So, there you go.
Okay, and we have another one. I've gotten this question. We've gotten this in email before, Drake. What about the student loans owed? Are they going to be zeroed out? How are they going to be handled?
Okay. This goes to credit and what credit really is. The originator of the credit is you. Your signature on the contract is the credit that they use to charge you for the privilege to pay them money that you originated. This is called Ponzi scheme or fraud. Therefore, you're not going to have a whole lot of these debts. A whole lot of these debts are bogus, student loans being one of them. Okay?
Okay. The chat room, everybody in the chat room, a lot of people in the chat room want to talk about the floods you mentioned this morning. They said you mentioned something about floods, and of course they want to talk about arrests, their favorite subject.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Go for it.
If somebody is into geophysics, the science of geophysics, on a planetary, solar system, and galactic basis, they can understand exactly what the floods are about. Now, this will not be the first time. Whether anybody likes it or not does not matter to me. What you need to do is go do your own research. They have evidence that at one point we had a 300-foot rise, and another point we had a 600-foot rise in the sea levels. These were due to varying things. We have a planetary alignment coming up due to the nuclear engine that has to do with our gravitational field and other relationships between planets. Sometime around the time of our planetary alignment, and this is on NASA if you want to look it up, we are supposed to also experience the melting of the ice caps on both poles. The estimated rise in sea level at the maximum will be 200 feet at the most. I suggest you make sure you're 200 feet above sea level, and that'll take care of that problem. Now, what was the second part of that?
The RV and the arrests. There's 3 parts.
Oh, okay. Revaluation goes to the collateral accounts, which are due to be released very soon. You'll like the RV when it happens. The arrests are something that probably will occur at about the same time as your central banking system disappears, because at that point, then the bad guys don't have the financial leverage necessary to exercise the powers that they've had before. And that's the simplest answer I can give you on those.
Okay, I have one more. This goes back to money. What about people that have accounts in like online banks, PayPal, that kind of thing with this reset? What's going to happen to them?
I would suggest that you make sure that you have real money deposited in an account, and that should put you in a position where when you get a revaluation or exchange, you get a fair deal instead of losing or possibly having a loss of funds. PayPal is usually holds for 72 hours and disperses funds to your bank account anyway. My understanding is that they do have insurance coverage to cover inconsequential interruptions, so you can deal with it that way. Next question.
That's all we have for now.
Well, I can't believe that the world ran out of questions that quick. I'm serious. This is extraordinary. The crux of all this, and I've kind of held back on some of the things that I know I could share simply because they deal with times and timelines. People wanted to hold me accountable for things I was given to say and told to say. Sorry, I do feel a responsibility for that. Consequently, I'm not going to tell you when. That ain't happening anymore. If you want to know who screwed the timeline up, I'd talk to the military in one respect. Now, I'm not going to blame it all on the military because the military has intimated to me that I was a little premature in coming out on the air with some of the stuff that I have talked about. However, that does not negate its reality and the fact that it's going to happen. Now, much of this is in progress as we speak, and everybody needs to understand that there's several things that goes into this. One of those is that the realities that I've been talking about that seem to be almost imaginary are just about ready to happen. When they plop in your lap, the question is, are you going to be ready as an individual to be able to understand how to operate within the limitations of freedom? Freedom, very simply, your rights stop where the other person's nose begins. So bar fights and that sort of fun is out. The other thing is that if people do not put together artificial conditions to cause wars that they can profit off of, there will be no more wars. We want your oil. We want to take this territory. We need both sides of the bay to do what we want to do. Well, these people who have been doing this for an extraordinary number of years are going to be removed one way or the other. It's their choice as to whether it's feet first or they can stand up and walk out like a man, take your medicine and deal with it. Now, some people, I have been given a glimpse of some of this list. It's somewhere between 30 and 50 feet long, and it has people that are going to be arrested and those who are not. It prefers a combination of charges against those who will be arrested. It also exonerates for certain reasons, which are stated on this list, in very short manner. I don't know if anybody has seen what's called a truncated legal brief. That's a very extraordinarily short message. Why they're not going to be arrested. Some people, just quite honestly, through dumb luck, took their money and made money with it. So there's no big deal in terms of them doing what they do. If they're an honest business person, they do several things. They do things in a fair manner with both their customers and their employees and the business they have. They don't take extraordinary trips and drive Rolls Royces necessarily, although some of them have the money to do that. There's nothing wrong with having money. There's also nothing wrong with getting an honest amount of money for your labors either. There's also nothing wrong with the idea that there should be equal pay. And I'm specifically speaking about the differential between women and men. That has got to be done away with one way or the other. Whether it hurts somebody's feelings or what, don't matter to me. If a lady can do what anybody else can do, whatever kind of work it is, she should get the same kind of pay. Just that simple. And I've run a lot of construction crews, and I used to pay some of the ladies more than the men because they were worth it. Just that simple. And the guys, when they found out, they were a little miffed. Oh, you're paying a girl that? I said, well, she's doing a lot better work than you are. Can you catch up? I'll pay you the same thing she gets. You talk about a contest. These ladies were not about to be caught up with, and the guys were not about to be left in the dirt. And, oh, my goodness, you get things done real quick when that happens.
Hey, Drake?
Yes.
Were you finished with that?
Pretty much.
The reason I say that is because we've got some more callers. You
Bring
ready
on.
for some more questions?
Of course.
Okay. This caller is Cindy. She's from area code 941. Cindy, are you there?
Yes.
Go right ahead. We can hear you.
Hi, Drake.
Well,
What if the bank has told us that we are Basel III compliant? Does that mean anything real?
You're talking about some fun and games in terms of banking regulation, and I will suggest that all of the banking rules, to include most all of the financial rules that everybody's familiar with, are due for some heavy changes. Same deal with the regulation and laws. This is basically what you're dealing with. There's enough regulations to kill somebody. There are enough laws that you become a felon just going to work every morning. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a people compliancy. In other words, if it's not equitable, it ain't going to happen. If it's not something that your average person can deal with, it ain't going to be. Just that simple.
So the Basel III program that they've talked about for a long time doesn't really mean anything?
Yes, it does. It's another convoluted way for the banks to steal.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
And the crook is going, so it ain't going to happen.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Okay. Our next caller is, let me look at the board here. The board's moving slow tonight. Our next caller is Doug. He is from area code 980. Doug, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How are y'all tonight?
Okay. Fine. How are you?
I'm doing good. Calling from North Carolina, where the Bill of Rights was actually made into play back when the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence happened. So calling from a good state, and Drake, I really appreciate your service, and I really appreciate everything you helped come out in life, too. That's I've been following you since March 28th, and it's just been, it's been real informative, and I just want to tell you I appreciate you first off. One of my main questions is, we all, kind of feel, and we know as Ron Paul supporters that he's not only involved in a certain aspect, but he knows about what's going on, and he's been more of a light than anybody else probably in the past 25 years as far as tendency. But I want to know, is Mitt Romney, is his butt going to be one of the ones that are going to go to the wayfall, or are they just going to keep him and let him keep running and lying and everything else?
That goes to be